Hello, my name is Shulamit, and I'm the creator of the MediSounds process. Every Sunday at noon, I host a Zoom meeting for us to explore wisdom teachings and experience the healing power of MediSounds. These meetings are made possible by generous donors. Please help this site thrive by liking and subscribing, and please join our newsletter at greatoctave.com to receive notices of our events. Welcome, everybody. Today I was reflecting on the currents, the underwater currents, the currents beneath the surface of our lives that affects us very greatly. We go about our business, whatever that is, whether it's, going to work or tending to our family or cooking or whatever your thing is. And we make attempts at stability, which we often achieve. And it appears to us that certainly in the prime of our lives that we're in control, that if things have gone well, that we've done the work necessary to build this nice, secure life. But the movement of the currents, the movement of nations, the movement of the cosmos, these things are not really in our control and affect us quite profoundly. I think of my own life. I was born in the middle of World War II, and everything was very unsure about how it was going to turn out. This, of course, followed on the Depression, which I was not alive for, but which my parents suffered through. And then after the war, the men came back and the women were pushed back into the kitchen and expected to marry and have babies and cook and wear nice, clean, tidy aprons, as I recall all the advertisement was in those days. And things seemed really steady. Of course, there were so many things going on, but beneath the surface that I wasn't aware of as a child. Certainly homosexuality wasn't even mentioned in those days. I didn't even know it existed. Certainly the Black population, the African American population, was in a position of being oppressed as usual. There were a lot of things going on beneath the surface of this kind of presentation of a very successful, glowing, pleasant life. And then by the time I got to college, well, maybe shortly after, actually, what was it, the late 60s, the 70s? The civil rights movement, the women's liberation movement, and Vietnam, these were explosive things happening in society at that time, which required an adjustment in all of us in each of our lives. Certainly the idea that you could leave an unhappy marriage. When in the 50s, divorce was unthinkable. Single parents gave their kids up for adoption. It was too much of a stigma to be able to carry that through, Things have changed a lot. And anyway, it keeps changing, and we move along the surface of our lives trying to adapt and keep everything kind of secure and so forth. And for some of us, we're quite successful. And for some people, life moves smoothly, maybe even with some disruptions to the very end. But for everybody, there are changes, and how we deal with them or even try to understand them. The period that we're living in now is stunning because I think none of us can quite comprehend why Why now? Why all of a sudden is the whole world in a crisis? Why is that happening? How did it happen? I mean, it seems strange, sudden, but it wasn't sudden. You know, in Jewish wisdom, they say that nothing occurs in the world before it's announced first. And we've had a lot of announcements about this time that we're in now. And many of us have felt that there was going to be significant changes. And of course, now we see it unfolding with AI and so forth. But I'd like to tell you a little story it's a Chinese story about, perhaps you've heard it already, about a farmer who was very poor. And he only had one son and one horse to work his land and to eke out a very, very meager living. And one day his son forgot to close the gate to the stable, and the horse ran away. And the whole village expressed their sympathy for him. Oh my God, you poor man, what are you going to do now without your horse? And the farmer said, we'll see. A few days later, the horse came back, but this time it was accompanied by 4 other horses. So now he had all these horses, which actually made him kind of wealthy, right? And the villagers all said, my God, how fortunate you are. This is amazing. What good luck, what good luck you're having. And he said, we'll see. His son took one of the horses out for a ride, got thrown and broke his leg. So now he couldn't work. And the whole village was saying, God, it looked like good fortune when you got all those horses, but now look what a mess. You have nobody to help you anymore. And the farmer said, we'll see. The next day, the army came through and took all the able-bodied men from the village, but of course they couldn't take the son because he couldn't walk from his accident. And so they left, and everybody said, boy, you are so lucky. What a lucky thing for you. And the farmer said, we'll see. And this story can keep going on and on. But the basic idea is that you don't know what's around the corner, good fortune or bad fortune, and it all depends on how you look at things, The world that we inhabit now is only 100 years, a little bit more than 100 years away from the end of World War I. And of course, we wouldn't remember this except from the history books. But the world before World War I was completely different. There was the British Empire, which basically dominated the world. There was the Ottoman Empire, Turkey, which dominated North Africa and parts of the Middle East, very powerful. There was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was very powerful and, steady and rich and vibrant in its culture and everything else. The Tsar was still the head of Russia. This is in 1914. And in 1918, this was all finished, and the entire geopolitical system was rearranged. And I'm sure most of you never heard of the Ottoman Empire or the Austro-Hungarian Empire or whatever. And that, of course, was a prelude to World War II. And after World War II, America became this dominant force. And rich and prosperous and so on, with plenty of problems. I'm not saying not without problems. But there are these currents that go underneath our lives. It's like we're living on one level, and beneath us, something else is happening. There's karma at work, but karma is very complicated, and it's difficult to understand exactly how it plays out, not only in the world, but in our own lives. We don't really fully understand the consequences of our thoughts and our deeds. Even when we're acting out of the best and most noble of intentions, we screw up, Sometimes we act with an understanding that we're doing the best we can for the people that we love, for whatever you're concentrating on, and then we find out sometime later that we've actually caused a lot of harm, alienated people, and done irredeemable things. So it's a question of modesty and humility. Our culture is one that elevates power and wealth as a source of happiness and thinness, of course, as well. So there's a whole concept of what it means to be successful. And this has very little relation to happiness or to the ability to sustain ourselves through difficulties. A rich person can be poor in their hearts and worry all the time, and a poor person can feel a life filled with abundance even though they don't have money. It's a point of view which you can cultivate. It's an understanding that your life really is rather fragile, even though you may not feel fragile at the moment. I mean, I don't feel fragile right now. I feel good in my health, in my body, my mind, my relations. I'm fine. However, that could change in an instant, and does change in an instant for many people. So even though your life may be secure and end up, like really be smooth sailing, well, I'm happy for you. But you have to take the advice. Well, you don't have to, but it's a good idea to take the advice of the Stoics. Don't get excited when things are going well. Don't pat yourself on the back for your brilliance and your etc. You can take satisfaction, but just don't overdo it. And on the other hand, when things go against you, even, loss of income, loss of property, loss of reputation, many things that could happen, loss of loved ones, don't also beat yourself up about that. Maintain a steady gaze and understand that you are not only here for a short time, but you're operating in a system that's much larger than yourself, much larger. And things that happen on a grand scale outside of your control can completely reorient your life. So power, which is nice. I don't have it, so I don't have power over the external world, so I can't comment on what that feels like. But I know that many really truly powerful people. I mean, I'm talking about the people who run huge countries, authoritarian people in particular, are very paranoid. They're constantly worried about who's going to kill them. And this is certainly true of Putin. Have you seen him? A picture of him and his councils. He's sitting at one end of this incredibly long table, and the people who need to talk to him are way at the other end. It's the head of Korea. If you see the way he walks, he's always looking behind him to see who's going to knock him off. That kind of power, I think, well, it's nice because you can say, I want to live here and I want to live there and I don't want this person to talk, so I'm going to lock them up, or whatever you need to do to feel like you can exercise power. But there's internal power. There's power over yourself. There's power over yourself, I was about to say that it was much harder to attain, but actually it's very hard to attain power over yourself. It's a lifelong process, and a very, very, very valuable one. Because when push comes to shove, if you have power over yourself, you're not so, you still suffer. It's not a cure for not suffering. But you don't suffer in quite the same way. And grief passes. It's more a question of, if your ego is not in the center of it, if you're not thinking, oh God, everybody's picking on me, or the whole world's turned against me, or whatever, and you really are looking inside yourself for a kind of stability that can't be shaken because you are relying on something greater than yourself, something eternal. Now, you can believe in a deity, that's eternal. And if you don't believe, you can also believe in nature, because that, I don't know if it's eternal, but it's certainly going to be around for a long time. No matter what we do to it, it will revive. It might become different. And the creatures on the earth might be different, but it will endure. And we are very small in relation to nature, even though we're very well protected in our homes and so forth. Although recently, I guess that's not so true with fires and earthquakes and hurricanes and such. But we only have our humility and our faith, and so absent all of this stuff that we tell ourselves about how great we are or how we're not great enough, how we have too many problems and we're not right in ourselves, absent all that conversation internally, there is a core. And that core is strong and it's connected to universal truths. And it allows you to endure even very, very difficult situations. Human beings are extremely resilient. And all you have to do is look at history, recent history. I mean, the people who have recovered, I don't know if you ever completely recover, but who have rebuilt lives after terrible disasters, you can see that people are resilient and that the human experiment can continue. So we're looking at a situation now, and I think it's good to remember the Chinese story. We're looking at a situation now where it's not clear what's happening. It's not clear what the threads are that got us here. There's obviously something much larger than our thinking can encompass. I mean, maybe this feels cosmic, the amount of change. And if you know anything about chaos theory, which is a theory of physics that talks about the nature of chaos, chaos is chaotic, obviously. And during a period of chaos, you can't perceive any pattern at all. But chaos theory shows that beneath the observable disorder, there is something new emerging. And I also have faith that there is something new emerging and that the old is being destroyed. I don't know why. I don't know why now. But the old is being destroyed and there's something new emerging. So keeping your center is very important. Remembering who you are, being simple and truthful, and not getting caught up in the insane passions that are going on right now, that are constantly being inflamed by both sides of the political spectrum. So you have to avoid that, to try to think clearly, to protect yourself and your family, and also to be able to move forward with a degree of joy and happiness until such time as you confront something which might be impossible to take in that way. But it's remembering that you're both smaller than you think you are and larger than you think you are. If you can connect to a larger reality, you get a sense of meaning and purpose. And sometimes you don't know what that meaning or purpose is. And you have to be even humble about that. But it's better than feeling that you've been buffeted around like a leaf in the wind. If you can feel that there is some reason that you're here. And there is a reason that you're here. You individually, each of you individually, there's a reason that you're here. And to embrace that and to hold steady in the middle of the madness would be a very good thing. So now I'm going to sound for you. So take a moment and perhaps you think about something that you want to talk about. Thank you for joining me today and being part of our community. I invite you to join us every Sunday at noon Eastern Time for the full live experience. Wishing you a wonderful week, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Visit greatoctave.com for more details about these webcasts, our newsletter, donations, and more.